Okay, let's just start with a few of the warm-ups. So as you come out of the foot, stretch the toes and the fingers, and then clench both toes and fingers to pull yourself back in. This becomes a fist and strikes the min meng. And then just into the second one. So this time it's the front hand that's forming a fist. So it's as though it's going to strike the heart. Okay. And now let's just bounce. So just again, just trying to really loosen the hip and the sacrum area so that the sacrum just feels like it's just hanging loosely on the end of the spine. And then just alternating the hands. And then just this one, the circle one. So just feel the min meng. You're trying to push that back. And especially on the yielding phase, when we tend to pull the belly into this phase, feeling as though what's beneath the sacrum is actually, beneath the min meng is coming underneath. Yeah, so the head is obviously coming over like this. We want the tail to come under at the same time so that the bum doesn't stick out. And again, just use the feet. So this foot is opening as this hand is, and then they both clench, and then this one opens. Yeah, so it's always alternating a clenched fist and an open hand when we're moving in Tai Chi, you know, because we've got two sides of the body. They're always doing opposite things. Just getting down as far as you can. You just want to, we just want it to be easy going down, coming back up again, so that you're not averse to the ground and you're not averse to getting close to the ground, because that's just like a psychological block. You'll never sink your energy into the ground if you don't like getting down into your legs close to it. Ooh. And then just changing direction. Ooh. And then just reducing the circles until we're back in riding horse. So again, just feeling. I mean, in the classics, they talk about pulling the tailbone under. I mean, there's that feeling, but it's really sort of just releasing the sacrum down through the legs. So we just want to make the feet just really active like this, yeah? And so there's always one that's wanting to open, and then as it clenches, it will naturally pull my weight into it. And this clenching here will naturally open the other side. So let's just try. So it's a bit like, you know, when we do the breathing or the clenching of the belly. Let's just try with a bit of this, yeah. So just pulling the belly in and then releasing it. So really having your mind in the min meng, this point on the back. It's very important, especially this time of year, because it protects, it has a fire, the min meng. They call it ministerial fire or dragon fire. And it protects you in the winter. So this time of year when the season's changing, it's very important just to sort of emphasize the min meng in your work. So this feeling that the head is coming over, but the tail is definitely coming under at the same time. So the head and the tail are always pointing in the same direction. So here they're tending to point back a little bit. And then here they're definitely coming forwards. And just feel this real sort of clench. You're clenching the fists, you're clenching the anus. So the sphincter, so you're basically turning the min meng into a ring muscle. The Dan Chen. So the Dan Chen feels like a sphincter. Here it's really tightening closed. And then here it opens up so that something can come out. Here it tightens. And then here it opens. And then just one, so just tightening. So open the foot, tighten and tighten. Yeah, so maybe bring the feet up a bit so it's a little bit more like a unit. Yeah, so basically it's like climbing a rope. You're sort of reaching forwards and then pulling in order to move yourself. We just want to feel one really clenched and the other one really opened. So the complete opposite of a clench, almost like your fingers are trying to bend backwards. And feeling how, you know, they belong together. When one is clenched, the other one is open. They don't want to do the same thing. And so even when they are doing the same thing, there's a feeling that they're wanting to sort of start alternating. There's a sort of inner tension. And you just want it to feel, you know, it's of the passions, of the drives. You know, so this is like opening the mouth. And then as you clench, it's a bit like sinking your teeth in. So it's got that feeling of killing or dragging something in for your own consumption. And so it's sort of animalistic. especially in the feet and the hands. So the hands are pulling something in and my feet are trying to pull me down. This foot is now clenching to pull me into the leg. Yeah. So it's obviously much more difficult with the legs because they're having to hold you up at the same time. Okay. And now let's just bring it into riding horse again. And again, you just want to feel this, like something inside you, the tentacle from the sacrum can really dip down. But it's in order to intend it with your mind. So when you intend with the mind, it's not just a matter of seeing. You've got to really mean it. There's got to be some intensity, some real spirit that comes out in order to reach the ground down there. So the use of that intending mind is actually quite animalistic. You know, it's quite spirited in a really sort of visceral way. So it's not that light butterfly spirit. It's like a hunting spirit and a killing spirit. Yeah, so your mind has to intend the tentacle. And for that, it's got to get really quite fierce. Yeah. Okay, now let's just lighten it up. Just jogging on the spot. Just try and stay on your toes so your heel doesn't really go down. And just making it just really limber. So the two sides, like the two partners in the dance, yeah. But that same feeling of as the foot hits the ground, the toes are open and then the toes curl. And it's that pulls you into the foot and loosens the other foot off the ground. So it's still this. You're still like the kitten that's massaging the mother's belly in order to get the milk to flow. So this is the basic action that we want to cultivate, because it's like it's just sort of passionate. So it's like you want everything that you do to have a level of passion in it. Yeah, so when you're sitting like cross-legged on the floor in meditation, so basically your hands and your feet are all with the Dan Chen. So that's the feeling here. Even though my feet are down there, my Dan Chen is wanting to go down to them. That's it. That's when it feels just most together and most natural. So the Dan Chen is wanting to get to the ground, largely because that's where the feet are. And just making sure that this sacrum area stays relaxed. You don't want your tail to stick back like this. So you don't want this action of the legs to push your tail back. Your tail is being allowed through these legs, through these dancing legs. That's what's difficult. And that feeling of plucking up the back, it's a strange instruction, that one. But when the spirit's sort of involved, when your body's really working as an integrated unit in this sort of alternating way, then there's almost the feeling that you're being suspended from here, from this lump at the top of the spine. And you're just hanging, so the legs are basically really free, because they're not actually, they don't feel like they're having to hold you up. Almost like you're being held up from here rather than here. If it's from here, then you'll just have the vertical spine, which will tend to inhibit the spirit, or in this sort of involved body spirit. There's that beautiful bit in Fist of Fury, Bruce Lee, and he's on the prowl, he's looking for the baddie, and his head is so far forwards like this, yeah? And so there's something about having your chin jutting out and your head crouched down that's just really activates the spirit. So it's like a prowling, hunting spirit. And it's the same spirit that you would need to do like hard labor. You know, let's imagine you're chucking bales of hay. Someone throws one to you, you've got to catch the bloody thing and then toss it off to someone else. Yeah. So it's a lot of strength across the shoulders that's required. So it's very much sort of laborer energy rather than academic energy. It's very, very physical and very, hard physical, hard labor. Okay. And now let's just squat down for a minute. So now just feeling the Min Meng and feeling the spine beneath the Min Meng just coming under. You don't want to tighten in order to pull it under. It just comes under naturally because of this posture. So here the Danchen really is close to the feet. So even though it may be a physical strain to be down here, your energy is happiest when you're in a posture like this. So it's very much like the shape you would have been as a fetus before, the couple of weeks before you come out of your mum, when you're so big and the womb is really cramping you. So this sense that you're really being squashed into as small a volume as possible. So the spine above the Min Meng is coming up and over the top of the head and sort of comes into the heart, solar plexus. And then the spine beneath the Min Meng comes underneath and up into the Dantian solar plexus. So there's basically a figure of 8 in your upper body, with the Min Meng as the exit point, and like your solar plexus or your Dantian heart complex as the entry point in the front of your body. So just feel the ground with feet and hands. Just feel how sensitive the hands are. As soon as you place them, you feel the ground, you feel all its detail. So we'd like the feet to have the same sort of sensitivity. And for that, they just need to be a little bit more active than they are. Okay, now let's just sit and just open the legs. So you should be able to just sit here. So you should be able to sort of meditate in this posture. So the spine, it shouldn't be too much of an effort. So we'll just stretch each leg a little bit. So just try and keep the knee straight. So what will tend to happen when you reach forward, especially now we're getting older, the knee will tend to bend. So this is what we want to try and inhibit. So we just want to keep the muscles in the back of the leg as long as possible. They do, especially if you do a lot of Tai Chi, the muscles tend to shrink a little bit because the legs are always bent. The legs and the arms are always bent, so the muscles never get extended properly. So here I'm really stretching the back of the leg. I'm pushing my thigh, my hamstring into the ground, really keeping the knee straight. Feel everywhere, just feeling stretch. And then just the other leg. Feel the stretches in the leg, but also in the lower back, and just be careful with it. And all the time, as I always say, just watching the mind. If I want to stretch further forwards here, what sort of mind do I need that will allow me just to let go of things that I think are impossible to let go of, basically, tensions that have been there since I can't remember. So what will allow me to just settle down on the leg? So when you get into meditation, you begin to realize it's all mind. It's all states of mind, It's all mind and it's all spirit. So, I mean, really, spirit is just the quality of mind that you have when you forget self. So when you become interested in something. So that's the best sort of spirit, really, just the spirit of curiosity or inquisitiveness. But what tends to happen is the ego tends to come in and requisition the spirit. So the ego gets the spirit to work for it. So the spirit will be interested and be investigating. And then the ego will come in and gather all of that. And then tell your friends about it, or try and market it, try and get some profit from it. Okay, now let's just bring it back into the squat. And this should just be a bit easier now. Yeah, so, okay, now let's just working the sphincters. So again, just clenching the fists and tightening the anus and the urethra and the dantian. So they're all the same thing, really. So as you clench the fists, those three sphincters are tightening. And as they tighten, it allows the knees to go out strangely. And then when it opens, the knees want to come in. So this is like a straight line coming out. And then this is like a circle tightening to stop anything coming out. So this is like the anus closed. And then this is opened. So something can come out. So pulling, and you don't have to push really, just relax and it all open up, and then pulling and opening. So these sorts of exercises become more and more important as you get older, you know, with the sort of the threat of incontinence as we get older. So just doing these exercises to tighten the sphincters and that lower diaphragm. Ooh. And just feeling the quality of the spirit that goes into tightening the sphincters, keeping them watertight, and then loosening. So this is like retaining, and then this is like letting out. So pulling. So you can do this sitting down, doesn't matter how. You don't have to be crouched. So with my old ladies, obviously I'm not in this position when I do it with them, but they find this really valuable because of course they're all dribbling a little bit at their age. So pulling in and releasing, pulling in. And there's almost a feeling that you're trying to suck your legs, your feet into your perineum. Yeah, you're drawing, you're really drawing here, pulling and then releasing, pulling and releasing, pulling and releasing. And then let's just come up. Okay. And now let's just go backwards and forwards. So again, just using these opening, closing actions with the hands and the feet. Yes, so when it opens, it's like the mouth opening in order to scream. It's like, wow. And then this is just becoming ruthless. So we want that action of the foot and the hand closing to pull me across into the leg. And just feel the turn. So what tends to happen when this leg bends in order to pull me forwards, it will tend to turn me this way because it's trying to pull at the sacrum, which is behind me. Yeah. So it'll be pulling me like this, but then as I come into the leg, there's the opposite turn. So it's a lovely feeling because it's turning in both directions at the same time. Yeah. And then here, this is pulling this way to try and get access to the sacrum, but as I sink back, I'm turning this way. So it's not simple, it's always complicated. It's always at least two things happening at the same time. And then all the time, just keeping the Min Meng dominant so that your tail is dropping down into the legs. So, and this is just all, each step in the form is just exactly like this, really. It's really, it's just really difficult. You just need such good energy to do sort of work like this. If you're tired or a little bit depressed, it just won't happen. this is really, the most important thing really in the form, because as you're going into the foot, you want to go into the foot because the foot is pulling the sacrum, not because I'm pushing myself with the other leg, because then I'll always be reluctant. This will be pushing the tailbone up and I'll never really sink. The sinking will simply be a bending of the leg. I want the sinking to be this, my tail going through the leg into the heel. So, it's just very sort of visceral. And you can't work like this all the time. You just got to take advantage of your good energy when you have it. So that time, I said to John, how can I get it right? He just said, just decide never to do it wrong again. Which to him was a simple matter. But it's like we've just got to feel the absolute value in getting it right, really. In first of all, just feel, what is really happening. So when my tail gets sucked through to the leg, what sort of mind do I have? You just have a very integrated mind, a mind that cannot think, a mind that cannot have part of itself separate. This is what I think we all yearn for. I know it's what I've always, because I've always been very self-conscious and always very much a sense that there is a me that is removed from my own body and removed from the situation that my body is in. So the only thing I've ever wanted really since I was tiny was integration. Just to feel as though I'm just one thing, just working, and I'm not observing. I'm just doing. I'm in the thick of it. I'm not on high, observing. And I think that's really just what we all want, because that, in a sense, that's happiness. Happiness is just forgetting yourself. So forget self and become one with the Tao. The Tao is just whatever you're doing. So the Tao can be the other person that you're working with if you're doing partner work, or the Tao is the form if you're doing the form. The Tao is the dinner if you're cooking the dinner. So you're with that. You're not with your mind thinking about it, or even worse still, thinking about other things. And the key, really, the big secret really is just getting down to the ground. Just really, can I really get my energy down through my leg and into the ground? Okay. So let's just bring it back. So again, this feeling that you're pulling yourself down into riding horse. You're not just settling on a platform, which is here, or even the ground. You're not settling on. You're pulling yourself down into it. It's got a very different feel and a very different look. So when you see someone doing it, they just look like an animal. They just look like. Talking about animals, I left this apartment is in like the posh part of Tel Aviv. So I'm certainly living beyond my means when I'm here. And I had a class this morning at 7 o'clock our time. And so someone picks me up, so I just have to walk through. There's like an alley that gets to the road, the main road, the other side. It's only like 50-meter walk. So I had to walk along this path, and for me, the saving grace of Tel Aviv is the cats. There's all these feral cats. And so in every street, there's always like an old lady who comes out and feeds the cats, normally in the evening, but the one here does it in the morning. And so I went out, and there's all these cats sort of eating. She just puts down like a little pile here, a little pile there, and each one will just come and have its own pile. And then I just looked along, and there was a jackal. Yeah? A jackal had sneaked in and was eating the cat's food. Yeah? And they're beautiful. They're like big fox. They've got a slightly bushy tail, not as bushy as a fox's, and they're beautiful color. Tan color. In fact, tan is actually the Hebrew word for jackal. But it's strange how these wild creatures, it didn't, it moved away when I walked past, but it didn't run away. It just moved, waited for me to go, and then it came back. Yeah. It's like a bit of magic. So just feeling the ward off. So this one, and this one here. So your whole spine is curved, creating this dish which can receive messages. Yeah. So feel the min-meng, and then the bit of the spine beneath it just curving down and just going into the heels. So what has to happen with the mind to just relax that bottom part of the spine down, because it's normally sort of compressed and pushed up. So what do I have to let go here to allow that? It's almost like it's almost like you're just sliding down a slide when you hit it. So it's all just looking at, what do I need to let go up here to allow the body to let go wherever you want to let it go. And it's always a tension in the mind. And it's very much in the head. And I just know no better image than the octopus. So this sense that you've got these sort of relaxed tentacles that are just moving around in the sea. And it's like the movement, it's partly expressing the movement in the water, but it's partly expressing you. So there's this sense of like a real intimacy between you and the medium you're in. And so the air, there's a fan up here, so it's buffeting me with these wafts of air. So I'm sort of being moved like this, but there's also a sense that is coming from the depths of me. That's coming from the libido as well. So it's like you're just not, it's never clear. So it's just a sense of just real integration, not just of your own body, but of you with the space that you're in. And then what John would say is it's like, always also you're integrating with time. Yeah. So you're just allowing your past to flow through you. So being in the present doesn't mean rejecting the past or forgetting it. It just means just integrating it, just allowing it just to be there and to have a sense that it's flowing through and creating the future. Yeah. So you really are a passage, not just for energy, but for time. John was really into that. That was his main thing. Yeah, so a sense of being so integrated, so together, that there's no room for self. Yes, the self will tend to come in when you lack stimulation to bring you out into the world. So when you're being excited or entertained, then the self will generally recede. So it's normally, like when you're practicing, when you're meditating, when you're on your own, that's when the sort of the thoughts will start, especially the negative ones. And so that's when we need to practice, really. We practice in the times where it's difficult to do what we want to do. Okay, so let's just bring it up. So it's like you've got itchy feet. They're just wanting to do this all the time, and they're not really wanting to stay still. They're quite much happy if I was sort of dancing around. They want to dance. The feet want to dance. So I was reading about Carl Jung, and that was at the time of the First World War. He was like doing an analysis on himself. So he was really trying to just seep into the unconscious. And what he'd often do, because the unconscious will tend to come out in sort of images and symbols. And so this is why they go for dreams a lot, because there's a real symbolism in dreams. But he would just sort of get himself into the mood and then just start dancing. He'd just use his body. So the unconscious will tend to come into the physicality of you rather than into the intellectual thing. So this is as far from the unconscious as we get. So there's like these sort of these waves of energy just sort of heaving through you. The thing I find really useful is those Vibram 5 fingers shoes. Yeah. Because the rubber is really quite sort of almost elastic, and you can tighten them up. It's got cord and you can really pull it tight. And then it just feels like your feet and your toes are just having to fight this rubber all the time. So it just stimulates the feet. That's why I like this time of year, because you can't wear them here in the summer because your feet just sweat so much into them. So when it gets cooler, then I can wear them. And it really is, you just really feel the foot activated because the fingers are pushed apart, the toes are pushed apart by the shoe. And you just find yourself naturally just squabbling with the rubber a little bit. So I thoroughly recommend them. They look a bit odd. That's a good thing about Israel. No one really cares how you look. Here, you look odd if you're wearing a suit. People go, you know, they go to work, they go to funerals in just shorts and t-shirt, you know. And flip-flops. Okay, so let's finish.